Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us here today talking about behavior supports for kids with complex communication needs. My name is Kelly Fonner. I do training and consulting in educational and assistive technologies. I'm going to apologize ahead of time for my voice today. I've got a bit of a cold. I know a lot of everybody's working on that. The material today was developed with my colleague Scott Marfilius with the work that we do in schools and in homes with people. So let's get started here. Your questions will come in to me, and I can answer them as we go, but I also have a couple spots where I'll stop specifically for questions. And thanks to Deb at AbleNet for managing all of that. So one of the things as we look at behavior support, and sometimes I think that this category of assistive technologies is misnamed, because I think it leads people to think that children and our students are having bad behaviors and somehow we have to squelch that. And it truly is about children and how they need to be supported in their receptive understanding about what's going on around them, about what's expected of them, because for some of our children, they're wired a different way, to say it that way, in that they don't always take in the subtleties that happen around them. They might not take in, when a teacher is giving information to a whole class, where do they specifically fit into that? And so these different types of categories that have emerged over time are things that help kids with their understanding, help people like their parents and staff communicate in a better way that's more understood with those children. And so what we're going to be talking about during this hour is how do we use things like personal checklists, things that help kids check in on what's going on around them and what they need to have as they go places to place. Things that are organizers like visual schedules and lists. Things like timers that allow students to see not just what time it is, but how much time is left. Any of those kinds of activity task support, like this might be the steps of a certain activity that you need to do. Several of these areas are gathering a research base, such as in visual modeling, where we take videos. They can be either, what we know now from research, it doesn't have to be of your child or of your student. It could be of other people. They don't need to be very long videos. But this idea of video modeling, where a child can watch what's expected of them, to perform a certain act, to go a certain place, even social situations to communicate, and watch that and have that with them. I have several colleagues that work with young adults and adults that watching videos such as how to go get the bus or how to do a certain task at their job have been really helpful. And we're seeing a growing number of products build in the ability to have timers and visuals within their software. We'll talk about, or their apps, and we'll talk about that. Social stories is another growing area. Been around for a while with Carol Gray and her work. And one of the things that in our own family, I have a cousin who has a son with Asperger's, and social stories was very important to him as he was in school and seeing what was expected, what would happen when things like a fire drill was coming, to get him ready to know what to do. People were trying to verbally talk to him, and when stress levels sometimes are high, a visual support can be very helpful. We're also seeing things like 5-point scales for kids to be able to measure where they're feeling or how much stress that they're under, where they might be in their thought process of having to go somewhere that's not a typical part of their day. And I've added this category of hallway reminders because I've been in several schools lately, and I want to thank the Anger School in Illinois and Oshkosh Middle School, because I just was there in the last week, and I took pictures all around their hallway, and you'll see some of those things as we move forward. I'm always interested in the people that are joining our webinar. We have 86 people that are on the webinar right now, and we have the potential for another 100 or so as people start to find out that it's the hour and they chime in. But it's always helpful for me as I can give examples that are more related to the position that you might fulfill. For those of you that are writing the word checking other, we only have a certain number of things that we could put in these polls, so please type into the Q&A where you fit in the other category, and that will help me improve as I create polls for future webinars. So we've got about half the respondents. I'll give this another minute or so. And then if you've been on webinars with me before, you know I do a little bit of a countdown before I close them out. We skip to the results so you can see what it is that everybody's filling out. So we have some OTs that have joined us, physical therapists, people in higher ed. It's a really good mixed group we've got here. All right, we need about 20 more respondents. Things are coming in steady. Thank you. Our largest group are speech language pathologists. I was with the CISA 5 Speech Language Institute yesterday. If any of you were with me, my voice is still the same. You have to listen to it again. All right, I think we're topping out here with respondents. I'm going to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll skip to the results so you can see who's joining us here. In addition to OTs, PTs, higher ed, we also have a person who is a blind and low vision consultant with us. Now, thanks for adding that on, and I will make sure that I do some adjustments to the polls in the future. The other thing, because we're going to be talking about different products, and I know that sometimes this is also a mixture of response, and sometimes you need to click more than once, but these polls only let you click in one area. But so that I can make sure that my examples are relative, I'm thinking we've got early intervention through higher ed, so I'm going to try and go through the whole gamut. As a special education teacher, I worked in early childhood settings. I was a transitional kindergarten teacher. I worked as a resource teacher in K-6 and skipped over middle school, my middle school people there, as a full-time teacher and taught in resource in high school. Certainly as the last 20 years or so that I've spent as a full-time AT consultant, I've been in all the grade levels, including working in some higher ed and other post-secondary situations with young adults and adults. You need a variety of technology. All right, so we've got people responding pretty quickly here. We've got a large group that serve all of K-12. Often that's that group of therapists that work across the age groups. And then we have some people that are specific to early intervention, kindergarten to grade 2, grades 3 through 5, some middle schoolers and high school people, and also a fair number of post-secondary people. So I'm going to count this one down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll skip to these results so you can see where it is and kind of what group that you're in. Please, if you're interested too in questions, you can ask them and Deb will forward them on to me, and I'll be taking a look every now and then. What we're going to talk about here are the purposes for organizers. And so in this kind of big category of organizers and behavior support are things, primarily one of the things that we do is support people's independence so that they don't have to be so reliant when asking the same questions over and over again, or for people having to verbally explain directions to them over again. Some individuals just don't hold on to that verbally given information. And visual support can be much more recognizable to them, especially if they're in any kind of high stressful situation. When we talk about that area of behavior regulation, it is often those unexpected things that happen in somebody's schedule or happening during their day, things that might cause stress and meltdowns and other types of behaviors. Often we'll use visual supports and organizers to reduce that frustration in not just understanding what's going on around them. And it's not that the group of people that we use schedule organizers are from any particular group of functioning or group of disabilities. It's a wide range, from students with learning disabilities and autism, and students that struggle with social issues, students that have intellectual challenges, kids that are on the spectrum. There's lots of different reasons that kids get and young adults get frustrated and need these kinds of supports. As I mentioned, one of the big reasons that we use them is to decrease this reliance on verbal prompts. I think often as parents or as teachers and all the other kinds of educators, we find ourselves going to that verbal description and verbal models for kids because maybe that's what you yourself get your information with best. And we have to remember that not all of our students learn in the same ways that we do. Sometimes using schedules and organizers are choiceless. There might be a visual choice of what's going on right now or of a particular activity I can do. And it can make that choice more clear to students and to communicate more information about different situations, as I mentioned earlier on, about fire drills and special events that are happening during the week or during the day or night. You'll find that we use organizers for time management, not just in letting kids know what time it is, but how much time is left or how many more things are expected of me before I'm done. We'll use them really to maximize kids' success in learning so that they can be a more independent manager of their time, whether they're spending time in certain classes or they have time working on their own. The other thing, too, that visual supports can help is in talking about past and future events, and we'll give you some examples of those. Lastly, but not always completely, are things that make more tangible information. It makes things more concrete when children can see a list of things. It helps them organize their daily living. It can help organize your classroom or your group home or, your learning resource center for people if they need to go to stations or to know what's expected of them as they're working on their own or in pairs or in large groups. It helps for many people to make life more predictable and just to put things into manageable steps. What I like you to think about is what are the visual tools that you might use? Do you have calendars that you write on? I don't think I could go through a day without a checklist and Post-it notes on mirrors and things like that. Do you have any kind of to-do list that you keep at home or at your desk? Do you ever read a sign when you're traveling in an unfamiliar place that lets you know where to stand or where to go, even as much as how do you get out of an exit, where that might be? These are the things that are around us continually. And some of us, kind of know to look for these things, and some people need more specific information. If you have children in your life, have you ever made checklists for them to remember to brush their teeth or reward charts for tasks and chores that they've needed to do? This last one is me. I am always attaching things to the bathroom mirror to remind me. And I also kind of live off of the timer off of my cell phone so that it's going off not just to remind me to get up, but 15 minutes before something's ready to start or 10 minutes before something's ready to start. We're also seeing a reliance upon visual tools, and some of the examples that I'm going to give you might be also from the world of adult services. So things where those of you that are serving young adults and adults that are experiencing memory issues, so that people have lists, they have signs. We're finding the use of electronic tools like Echo Dots and those kinds of things to set up as reminders. I have a colleague whose mother is experiencing some loss of memory, and she will leave reminders that come through, Alexa. We'll probably turned on everybody's Alexa machines that are now listening, and that remind her 15 minutes before maybe an event is happening in her home and healthcare agency. 10 minutes before, even a half an hour before, if there's things that her mother needs to gather to go down for one of the social events, and even reminders about time to take your medicine. Those kinds of things are becoming commonplace in the world of serving adults with head injuries, dementia, Alzheimer's, and we could take advantage of those things for our children in schools as well. Well, and I love this image from Linda Hodgson from usevisualstrategies.com, that, some students we talk to, and we talk to, and we talk to, but it really just goes through. They're not picking up on verbal instructions, verbal information. They need to have things that hold their, not just hold their interest, but alert their attention. It gives them something to hang on to with a visual presence of information. One of the things, if you want to write in what kinds of behavior supports that you are particularly using, a lot of people use Pinterest as sources. People will use things like lesson picks and symbol sticks and Boardmaker. And we're going to take a look at some of those tools and others. This is a big area that you can find examples, like from the things that are on the screen right now, which are pictures from Pinterest, from lesson picks. Teacher Pay Teacher is another source. Golden Child, Autism First. Linda Hodgson's site of Use Visual Strategies was one of the very first sites that myself and our staff were using. Linda gives, there's a free portion and there's a pay-for portion on a lot of these sites. But Linda gives a lot of nice tips and hints. I'm signed up for her weekly support information, and I'm constantly going back to information in her books and her webinars for support with visual information. As I mentioned, there are online creation tools. These are just a few, probably the ones that I find mostly used in schools are Boardmaker and the various versions of Boardmaker, Lesson Picks, and Symbol Sticks Prime. And we'll show you some examples from all of those. One of the things that Scott Murphilius and I have done over the years is to create feature lists. And we've looked at this area of behavior supports, organizers, portable tools, a number of years. And so just to give a little poll here on what are some of the things that you may use. If there's something that you want to really put out there, I know a lot of people use Pictello for creating social stories and other kinds of supports. So if you want to check on this list, there's a lot of Boardmaker users. There's a lot of people like myself that use a combination of these kinds of things. Pinterest is sometimes an overwhelming resource, but you might find certain people like Lauren Enders and others that contribute information on Pinterest. Positivity is a newer product from N2Y, the people that do unique and news to you, but positivity gives you the ability, and I'm going to show you a screenshot from that, to do a variety of the behavior supports and add them into the electronic activities that you do, or that your children or students might be doing, from the same company that does Symbol 6 Prime. Again, if you have anything wildly specific that you want to write in, put that into the Q&A so I can see what things that you're really excited about using, so we can share that out. All right, we've got 58, 59 respondents. I'm going to count it down here. We've got 97 people now on the webinar. Thank you all for joining us. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as I was mentioning, we have a large number of BoardMaker users and people that use a combination of these tools. And if there's things that you want to write in, oh yes, Kathy Pratt's website, somebody's written in about that. Really nice supports from Kathy in a lot of the things that they're doing in those schools. And of course, a combination of the above. As I said, that Scott and I looked at things in this feature match kind of world of what kinds of things do this particular tool or app, what kind of operating system does it need, what is its general appearance features, and a lot of times the appearance, it's that human factor that really, depending upon how baby-ish it might look. I've had students reject it. You know, what kinds of input, if I've had kids that have needed to use switches, what is it that they can use to access some of these tools? How does it scan? Kathy, somebody's asking the question, Kathy who? And I'm sorry, it's probably got to do with my voice, but it's Kathy Pratt, P-R-A-T-T. Hopefully that was clear. So we're going to look, as we go through the different categories of tools, we'll look at things like the operating system, what kinds of things are Mac and Windows and Chrome and just, you know, accessible on the internet, things that are handheld tools, things that are web-based. And let me tell you, after being at the Enger School last week, I had to add this category of embossers and cutting machines because they are using so well their Cricut. And I hadn't thought about using the Cricut. And in one of the images that you see here on the screen, you'll see in their hallways how they have communication reminders and behavior reminders and kind of resting spots. And you'll see some other examples that they've used on the floor and on the walls. And I'll tell you, as I talked to Erica, you know, one of their educational support staff, she talked to me about how so many children that they had, and they would have all of these papers up in the hallway. And they had, you know, a particular student or two that would just go through the hallways and rip papers off the wall. And when they started using the Cricut, she said just within the first year of having it, it paid for itself over and over again. So I don't receive any kickbacks from Cricut. It's one of the things that I'm really now excited about because I saw how well it was used in this particular environment. This idea of hallway reminders, you know, whether you have, you know, what do you do when you've got a problem? You go ask for help. So many students, you know, kind of wait until it's noticed that they need help. You know, what kinds of things, even reminders about going to certain apps. I love this image from Oshkosh Middle School in the lower right-hand corner, where they had this list of apps. You know, what do they need to think about when they go and get information for their resources? Is it something that's true that they're reading? Is it something that's helpful? You know, we kind of chuckled over the is it legal, but one of the things that we know, and I've done other webinars on compliance, and that we have certain number of apps that without parent permission we cannot use with our students 13 years and less. And, you know, maybe we can't use it with them until they're 18, again, without parent permission. So some of these kind of hallway reminders, things that look at large-scale behavior support, so that, for example, here at their Panther Way, they have kind of these reward cards that teachers and other staff and students can give to one another that go into this bin, and then they can, so when they're, you know, caught doing something well or they've helped somebody, and then, you know, a certain number ones of those go in, to, you know, get picked out of the bin each week, and they can get Starbucks cards and, you know, other kinds of rewards. And that's a school-wide process that they do. Somebody's also written in that they use Pictello and insert actual photos in it. We'll see some examples of that. You know, using real photographs can be helpful. Here's some other examples that I'm, again, a little bit over-enthusiastic about right now. From the floor, where I know that many of us have created step paths, you know, which ways that we go into the lunch line, how much distance between children. I see this in a lot of elementary schools and early childhood programs. You know, the idea of where do I get, what kinds of things do I need? This reminder on the upper left, do I have my communication device with me? You know, did I leave it back in my cubby or in my backpack? So those kinds of support's really wonderful. Timers are a big category. One of the companies, Time Timer, that makes this variety of time timers. You can't get stuck on, you know, what it is, because they're all called the same thing. And so it's the Time Timer watch, the Time Top clock, the Time Timer app, the Time Timer schedule that's got the clock attached. So you can, as you see here on the screen, I'm trying to put like where you get some of these things too if you're interested. But things that show a clock face, either within the clock, how much time is left, or just the clock that counts down the time. Some other things that fit into that category are stopwatches. This little Mark My Time bookmark goes into books so that while kids are doing independent reading, they have a countdown for how much time is left while they're reading. They'll find some other kinds of timers that are more easily managed. You might just be set a time and there's an image there that when it beeps, that's what is happening. But then you'll also see count up timers, so I can count up the time, and things that count down. So, you know, how you are using those in different situations. This use of the Echo Dot, there are some nice examples on the internet of how you can make sure that you're using them in a legal way in different school situations, in that we're protecting children's privacy while we use these timers. Personal planners are some things that, you know, people might just get a planner from their local Staples or Office Max, but there are a couple companies like AbleLink and Cognitopia that have created personal planners for young adults and adults. Certainly I've seen them used with younger kids, but that really help people plan out their day, their schedule. The company AbleLink is working with, unfortunately, the growing number of head injuries that are a result of war and car accidents, but they've got some really nice examples up on their website, as well as Tom from Cognitopia, who has created these actually for a personal reason for a brother that needed to be able to live more independently, but to have some more specific tools to help him manage his independent life. And from these same companies, You'll find things that run as apps on your iPads and Galaxy tablets, but also things that run off of your phone, off of other kinds of digital portable tools. So definitely, go, if this is an area of interest for you, go and take a look at their examples and some of their videos. Contact these people. They will work with you to help you customize what you might need for your students or your child's life. I mentioned Linda Hodgson several times now from Use Visual Strategies. It's all one word, usevisualstrategies.com. And she has a variety of things that you can print out for these visual supports that are these kinds of reminders, either that children have with them on their desk. They might have them on a wristlet. They might be something that staff put on a lanyard. But these are things that are just that visual reminder for what, somebody might need to see to be able to remember a behavior that's expected of them. Attainment has actually a wide variety of picture cue cards in both print versions and electronic versions that go along with activities of daily living, that go on job tasks, personal hygiene reminders. Again, the printed set can be things that are put into card carriers, cases, and other ways that people are using these. We'll take a little break to see if there's any questions that people have at this point about timers and picture cards. And if not, we'll continue along our way. Carol Gray and her team have been talking about social stories for a long while now. And what you'll see is information in books and apps that are specifically created for social stories. We're going to take a look at some of those things. It might be for individuals where photographs are more relatable. You can have them into a talking picture book, such as the one that's imaged here. Other ways that people do social stories is that they'll use different symbol writers. So they might use something like Symbol Writer from Widget. They might use Picture It from Attainment to create these kind of picture menus of what's going on. They might write a social story. And one of the things that I don't want you to confuse with this idea of an image for every word is we're not talking about teaching people to read by using an image for every word. When we're using these kinds of tools to support anxiety, to support understanding of what's expected, especially in highly stressful situations, sometimes people, even if they can read, struggle because they're excited, they're overstressed, and just having this visual to go along with it quickly is this reminder of, okay, that's what's going on right now. That's what I need to do. That's what I need to be prepared for. You'll see some other apps like Visual, and people might not know Sandbox Learning, which is all about creating social stories, where you can customize them to your child, to your students, to whether, as you can see in the picture from Sandbox Learning, whether you have a child that travels in a wheelchair or they travel by walking. They will also have images that you can add in for kids that have communication devices. With the Visual app website, you can also put timers within activities. You can also have books that are customized to children that have pop-up within them to alert kids to certain situations. I mean, Visual does a lot of things, but social stories is one of the reasons that people might use Visual. There's some nice examples in there. People have mentioned Pictello, from assistive wear. It's a big use of Pictello for social stories, for projecting things that are going to happen, or reviewing things that happened in the past, where you can take an image, you can record yourself or record your student, walking themselves through certain steps, or retelling something that was a favorite thing of theirs, or something that they need to remind themselves to do. There is a second handout that we've attached to this presentation that was created in Minnesota by the Lake County Cooperative Services, because there was going to be no way within an hour that I could go through all of the apps that exist for people that use and create social stories. So things that are free, things that have purchase to them. And at Lake County, they've created this great document where they've given you the list of apps, costs, features of that app. And they aren't just all used for social stories, but this was kind of how I found it as I was doing some searches. Also, up on the Lesson Picks site, you can do a search. There are certain things that are free and then certain things that you get once you've joined as with your annual subscription. But if you do a search for schedules or social stories, not only will you get examples that people have created, but you'll also get presentation handouts, informational sheets that also explain that type of category of visual support. From Judy Lynn Software, they have both software programs and apps like Story Builder, and I'm going to show you some other ones from screenshots. So you can create your own stories that can be reviewed. They're switch accessible, which is really helpful. And again, from Attainment, their whole kind of a whole category that they have on social supports that have video modeling, that have checklists. Some of these even have lesson plans for you to use as a teacher or a parent. They have social skills that happen in the community, at school. They go through, recording specific children at different age levels at school. And again, take a look at their website for some of their nice examples that they've got. Also, from the one on the left is from Able Link. Somehow I've missed that on this slide. Is Visual Impact. One of the nice things with Visual Impact and its video modeling is it has branches as a part of it. So if I'm going to do a task and I start that task, and if there's a certain, like one of the examples that they have is from a job site, and if they get a customer inventory list and there's a certain thing that they need to put together in a mailing. So if one item A, then they go down that branch of what do I have to do to get item A ready to mail out to somebody. If it's item B, it takes me through a different branch. So you'll see they've got some nice supports there in Visual Impact, and we've been using that with our young adults on job sites, and as I mentioned, have also been using it with adults and individuals who are older. Also from Judy Lynn is the set of software where you can put together sequences. They've got some sequences that are built in. One of the things with their sequences is that you can also run through them, and you can kind of go into a quiz mode as to putting the sequences in order, if that's something that's helpful for your particular student or child. But you can also create your own. You can pick from the, oh gosh, there's lots of them that are there. I mentioned Positivity, which is a newer app on the market from the N2Y company that has, many of you talked about using Symbol Sticks Prime. And one of the supports that you get within Positivity is that you can set up daily and weekly schedules. You can do social stories, which they call social narratives. You can have video models. You can create break cards. So I have to do this many of things until I get my break. Different types of incentive charts so that I can, what do I need to do, the number of steps until I get a reward or something that I'm going to be able to do. And then also these decision trees. If this is happening, then I do these things. If this is happening, then I do another set of items. So, again, go and check out these companies that I'm kind of running through very quickly, because I always know that there's a world of people that use things like Boardmaker. Don't forget Boardmaker Share, because people have post, most of the stuff that I use I get off of Boardmaker Share, the activity sharing place. And then I bring them into my Boardmaker and I adjust them. So things like the checklist that you see on the upper left, reminder cards, countdown lists. They also have some add-on products like Schedule It, Sequence It, and Social School Stories that have, I can't remember how many are in each of those add-ons that you can add in and print out things that people have already created. Kind of lesser known here in the United States, but as the company Widget. And Widget's a company from England, and one of their products is Communicate in Print. And people create communication boards and schedules and social stories. But one of the things that Widget has been working with is young adults and adults in the home, people who may struggle with reading, directions, forms, information that is in museums, information that's out on playgrounds, and they have a really great set of examples that they've worked on with ambulance drivers who are trying to get information from patients who struggle with reading or may not speak the same language. They've also have some examples. If you are, working with people in the medical situations, in community situations, they've worked in prisons with having materials adjusted for people that might struggle with reading information in a wide variety of settings. So take a look at their examples. They have some nice examples that are up there for you to download and then show you ways that they can create your own. I've had somebody ask the question about if I can still use Boardmaker Share if you are using the Boardmaker 5 or the Boardmaker 6 or Boardmaker Plus CDs. Yes, you can. You can download those and save them onto your hard drive, so you can do that quite easily and still take advantage of the things that are up there. It doesn't have to just be with Boardmaker Studio or Boardmaker Online. Another company that's not well known is iBox Tools, and I'm sorry it's kind of bleeding off of the screen there, but it's iBox Tools, and these are pre-made materials. Some of us are able to and have the time and ability, or all various reasons where we can make stuff on our own or adjust things that are pre-made. Some people just want to buy it, and I understand that. If somebody's already made it, I want to get it. And iBox Tools is one of those places where you can get schedules, you can get pre-made card sets, different kinds of visual supports that are on flip rings, cards that you just kind of break apart and, Velcro away. Wristlets are becoming popular, whether it's a wristlet that tells you, I'm in the mood to talk right now, or I need you to leave me alone. I love this little flip on the green and red size of the wristlet. But you'll also find companies that make wristbands that you can just, print out cards or print out things to stick on them. You can go the DIY, do-it-yourself way. In fact, I was just in Target the other day, and they've got wristlets for kids to make their own bracelets, and I thought, oh, my goodness, well, a shiny purple one would just be wonderful for one of the kids that I know. The other thing, too, is places like Boardmaker and Lesson Pick have templates for all of these kinds of things. In fact, I have a team of people that were just on Boardmaker and using the wristlet band to create personalized wristlets. You can also, if you're interested, buy them kind of in the hard, flat bracelet style. I mentioned, and yes, Toby Dynavox has the flat bracelets as well. And a lot of people like to use those for when you're in situations like going to the bathroom or other places when, it's not always conducive to have a big picture schedule that you're taking around with you. And they're worn by the children. They also can be worn by staff. And I find them very helpful. And whenever I have mine on, people are always asking me about what that is. So thanks for those companies that have it. The 5-point scale is something that's been developed. It's a research-based intervention. You'll see it for kids monitoring kind of their zone, their locus of control. You'll see people use it to monitor the level of voice. Here's some nice examples that way. Am I using my outside voice? Do I need to be using my inside voice? Which voice level? And kind of what's nice is when you've got one of these either customized to a child or in your classroom or in your hallway, again, the teachers and the staff in the hallway don't have to be constantly saying, you're too loud, you're too loud. Use your inside voice, which a lot of kids just ignore. Or it doesn't, being told the same thing over and over again and expecting different results doesn't work out really well in some situations. And so being able to say, use your green voice or just point to it can be kind of stop somebody in their tracks and get them to do that. The other things that people use the 5-point scale is to manage stress levels, pain levels, involvement levels, like what's expected of me right now. I have a student that they use a 5-point scale with her about her understanding, she's a high school student, her understanding of participation in discussions. So she doesn't always know that it's her turn to contribute. And so they started using, it's actually a 3-point scale, about you're not expected to contribute if you don't want to. It would be nice if you contribute. And then the highest 3 of it's expected of you to contribute during this discussion. And her teacher can just go right at her desk and point that they actually use like a little chip. And they put that little chip disc, not a potato chip, but they put that little disc on top of the color in the discussion level that's expected. And that's been kind of this nonverbal thing that's been going on over the last school year that's been extremely helpful. Many of us use reward boards and token boards and, other kinds of rewards. You'll find some examples here at NoodleNet. You'll find nice examples of token boards and reward boards that might have your child's favorite characters on them, but you can also find things that are more mature because I certainly have people that would reject some of the PUPS boards. But things that where kids can count up, because often people are saying to them, you need to do this 5 more times or 5 more minutes. And that often is not a measure that some students can relate to. So being able to move a star to each time that they've done something to that, they know that there's an ending point, can be really important for kids. All right, well, we've talked for the better part of an hour. Let me give you some kind of basics as you go to sort through all of this information. As I mentioned, Scott and I rely a lot apart on looking at features. Is it a tool that I'm going to use? And how does my child access that? Can they use their finger, like if it's on a screen? Do they need to use the stylus if it's more of a personal digital assistant? Can they use a switch with this particular product? Can they use their voice to access this product? What kinds of cues and how are those cues given? Is it an auditory cue? It could be like a beep or a bell or even a talking voice that reminds them the things that they can do. Is it something where they're moving cues? Is it visual? If it's an electronic product, are the steps that they're on in that schedule being highlighted as they go through that? Can you do things like adjusting the timing or the rate of selection for people that it might take them a little bit slower to respond to any type of prompt? Does it have this feature of branching where I can go down one set of choices versus another set of choices when I'm in a task or an activity or a decision-making situation? Can you sync it up with an online calendar? If there's information that's sent, can it go through? Can it be shared across family members? Can it be shared between a teacher and her students? So do you have that kind of remote access, or do you have to have the product in your hand to create anything new? Can you push that out? Does it use a camera where the feature of photographs are important to your particular student? If you go to the AbleLink website, you'll also see how they are using GPS, where they have visual reminders for people when they might be on a bus. And depending upon where they are in the bus schedule, it will remind them it's time to pull the bell to alert the driver that you're getting off at the next stop. So it can have those kinds of following. It will know, like if you're at the grocery store, and it will pull up your grocery store schedule. So some of these things are available now. Some of these things are what they have in production. Very exciting. Processing, we talk about people's cognitive interaction with the product. What does the layout look like? If it's an alphabet, is it rearrangeable if my child uses a different arrangement of the alphabet? Is it customizable with its pictures? Can I type it in and pictures are produced? Can I talk it in and pictures are produced? Can I have picture images that maybe somebody created and that's turned into text? Do different pictures represent functions? So how are images used in menus and on the schedule or behavior support itself? Does it have movies that when I'm in a particular part of the task, I can click in? You'll see products like Go Talk Now have this feature that you can go to a certain step and then click and you'll have a little video model of the situation. Markers, what we mean by markers is, how do I mark things off? Do I just, do I have a laminated card and I use a vis-a-vis and just kind of mark it off with a washable marker? Or is it Velcroed stickers that I move, or magnetic stickers that I move, or something that I pull it? One of the 5-point scales has you, with a pipe cleaner, move a bead across that. So how do things get crossed out that are done in some of those kinds of tools that use a series or a task series or a schedule series? Lots of things to think about. And it's not about what's best. It's about what is the best feature for your particular situation, for your particular student or child. If it's a product that has switches, how is that switch access happening? Is it something that's kind of the default automatic scan, where they use their switch once to start the scan across the items? Or can they be more active with it and use one switch to move across the selection set and a second switch to activate it? How is that scan presented? Might be dependent upon how the information is delivered linearly, or if it's a clock circularly, can it go around that way? So, all those things, for those of you that are involved with kids with switches, we want to be able to look for that same information in the tools of organizers and behavior support. Some people will use some of the step sequencing tools, like the step-by-step and the sequencer from Adaptivation and the Smooth Talker from Inclusive Technology, Inclusive TLC, in that as you step through, you hear the order. And so not everybody in these behavior supports, I've been spending a lot of time talking about visuals, but some people do need the auditory that goes along with it. So by using things like video stories, being able to use things like Pictello, they can see an image and hear the story. Sometimes they just need to be able to hear the steps of what's expected of them. For example, the steps of going to the library or the steps of going outside for the fire drill. And then what do you get as a result of using it? What's the output of all of this? Some people just need the text. Some people need symbols. Some people need both. So look, if that's something you need to check into the flexibility of the particular tool that you're using. If you're using one of the photographic and audio apps, can it also highlight as it moves through the words as they're being spoken? Is it text-to-speech or is it digitized text? Do you have different voice options? And don't forget that some people also need tactile reminders. Many of us might use our phones and as our scheduler support. And instead of having it auditory all the time, it might just vibrate or it might light up when certain things are happening. So look to that of the product that you're looking to use. So a lot of people will ask this question: when do I stop using this? And often I'll say back to them, when do you stop using your calendar? When do you stop using your phone as a reminder? Too often there is a misunderstanding about schedules and behavior support, is that they are there to be learned and then put away. In my mother's church, they have a child that they use visual schedules with. And in the bathroom, there are the steps to going to the bathroom and washing your hands. And people have said, oh, well, they must not have learned that yet because it's still up there. But that's not the point. The point is, can they use it independently? That's what we're looking for. Can we start to integrate these kinds of products seamlessly into somebody's environment so that they can be using them by themselves, managing their time, managing the tasks that they do without somebody constantly verbally reminding them? Because as I say to many of my parent educators and educational assistants and one-on-one, what happens when you're not there? How do they go on the days that there's a substitute in your place? Because you are so over verbally prompting. One of the people who's just written in, thank you, Sharon, says that she always says, I always say never. They just look different as the student matures. And that's a really, really great way of wrapping this up, is that you might be starting out by using, images, but be careful as you move forward with those images that you're staying specific to that student and appreciate and honor their age and their location. Some of you had clicked on that you use PBIS. I'm finding that not a lot of people know about this site. So there are nice blog posts. There are other online resources that you could take advantage of. So I just wanted to put that out there again as one of the lesser known positive behavior supports. It also goes more in depth. And with that, we have come to the top of the hour, or very close to it. I want to thank you for listening to this raspy voice. And I want to thank my colleague Scott Morphilius for his contribution to this. If you want to get in touch with either Scott or myself, Here are our emails and our website. And of course, as always, thank you to AbleNet for continuing to produce these webinars so that we can get information out, and we don't always have to be face-to-face to do that. Thank you for your real time, and thank you for those of you that are watching it on YouTube.
Kelly, we do have one question. Someone is asking
Sure, if we have time.
Sure,
there's been a question about prompting hierarchies.
Yes.
One of the things that we talk about in supports for prompting hierarchies are things, I've seen some, I'm trying to think of where I've seen examples. I know I have examples myself that I send out to people. In one of the webinars on environmental communication teaching and on supporting kids with complex needs, there are webinars that you can take a look at on YouTube. We have examples from those processes of prompting hierarchies. Looking at Kate Ahern has a really great visual on her website, which is not coming to my mind right now. But if you look up Kate Ahern, either on Pinterest or on Blogspot or on Facebook, you'll see her printouts of prompting hierarchies, which are really great examples of using this least to most. Lauren Enders, who I mentioned early on, has a wonderful Pinterest site, and she has a visual that she puts up in classrooms that show a least to most prompting hierarchy for kids that need either communication support. And what we're looking at in least to most prompting hierarchies is that you're not overdoing it. We have the world of aided language stimulation where we model from kids' communication systems and might model from their schedule. But we don't always do the pointing by kind of grabbing their hand and pointing right away. Kate Ahern is A-H-E-R-N, and Lauren Enders is E-N-D-E-R-S. So that's the Pinterest site is Lauren Enders, and the blog spot is Kate Ahern. And on both of them are also on Facebook. Thanks everybody for your questions. You can also contact me or Scott if you have specific questions to your child and your situation. Oh, sorry, my voice is now going. But I think that we're about at the point where we're going to wrap it up.